Hey now, it is Dan Aberhard here, and welcome to the Growing the Future podcast, where we talk to folks who like to innovate, collaborate, and transform the agricultural industry. Thank you so much for joining us for Season 5, Episode 12. Well, folks, we know there's a lot of crazy technology getting advanced out there, but how do you put it all together? How do you make it work? How do you get it into the field? How do you implement it? There's so many different pieces of this puzzle. So I have an expert on today from EMILI. It's an industry-led nonprofit right out of Manitoba here. We're going to talk to her and how they're implementing this stuff down on the ranch. So getting right down to the ranch, folks. But before I do that, I just want to tell you about our Aberhard family of companies online that you can check out, starting with aberhardfarms.com, where we grow food to feed the world in Langenburg, Saskatchewan. suregrowth.ca, where we offer precision agronomy consulting services. convergencegrowth.com, where we accelerate solutions across food, health, and agriculture. And aberhardagsolutions.ca, where we deliver one-of-a-kind fertility solutions of the future to your farm. Get notified about our new episodes by signing up for our newsletter at growingthefuturepodcast.ca. My next guest is the managing director of the, catch this, because we'll be using this acronym going forward. It is not a person. It is a thing. Enterprise Machine Intelligence and Learning Initiative, or EMILI for short. Very catchy. Very catchy. She is a professional agrologist who holds degrees in agribusiness and public policy. She is a strong advocate for women entrepreneurs and the role they play in society. And today I'm going to talk to her about what is EMILI, how did it get started, what does it do, and where is it all going? And, we're going to pick her brain a little bit about how to put all these pieces together in the agricultural complex. Welcome to the show, Jacqueline Keena.
Hi, Dan. Thanks for having me.
Hey, it's going to be amazing. So we talked a little bit about things yesterday, and I kind of got an overview of what you guys do. But for the audience's purpose, tell us what EMILI is, how it got started, and what its purpose is.
Absolutely. Well, you did a good job there getting the name right. Enterprise Machine Intelligence and Learning Initiative, or EMILI. When we were founded back in 2016, the founding board gave it this big, long name because we wanted it to be memorable. We wanted to have meetings and go to events and things like that and have people remember EMILI, Accelerating Digital Agriculture. So as you said, an industry-led nonprofit. What that really means is that we're led by a board of industry leaders as well as university and college presidents and academic leaders, and we work to grow the digital agriculture ecosystem. Our success is the industry growing and having more people involved in agriculture and digital ag. And I should say maybe right off the top, Dan, that for us, digital agriculture is the application of intelligent technologies before, during, and after on-farm production. So really, anything that's agriculture, the role of new technologies as part of that is what we would call digital ag.
I love it. Well, I love the name because it almost seems like a person. I mean, if EMILI was a person, how would you describe her?
Well, I guess she would be busy. Some of the activities that we do, are around skills and talent and attracting more people to the industry with different kinds of skill sets from different backgrounds. We work with new companies to trial and validate their technologies at Innovation Farm, something I'm sure we're going to talk more about in a moment. We do some work related to fostering collaboration between industry and academia. We have amazing companies, small, medium, and large, here in the prairies and across Canada doing incredible work in digital ag. And we also have world-leading researchers at our academic institutions, colleges, and universities. And how do we get those folks chatting to each other a little bit more, knowing who's in whose backyard to collaborate with and really drive some of that collaboration? So a number of different activities. One other that I should mention, actually, that we got started sort of in the last 2.5 years, we call it capital enablement. It's really about supporting new companies as they grow and making sure that they have what they need in terms of access to capital, resources, mentors to keep growing and scaling. And so for EMILI here in Manitoba, that work is primarily focused around quite small, quite new startups. I sort of talk about 3 or 4 people with a proof of concept. And so we work to support them, provide micro grants where we can, and really make sure that we can make good connections to the resources that they need so that they can keep growing and scaling here in the prairies.
What is the fundamental problem that you're trying to solve? Because it's my impression that technology, while sometimes easily created, it kind of gets stranded. It has trouble getting to the market. Can you describe what the fundamental problem is that you're trying to solve?
Well, I would say what you're highlighting there related to the development and sort of full commercialization and deployment of new technologies is something that we're working on at Innovation Farm. So that project is really great, and we just launched it last year. We're coming to the end of our first growing season of Innovation Farm. And so what it is we have partnered with a real farmer, Rick Rutherford and the Rutherford Farm team in Grosse Isle, about 20 minutes north of Winnipeg, and they run a 5,500 acre commercial seed farm. And so the Innovation Farm project is layered on top of their existing continuing commercial farm. And what we do out there is test and validate new technologies with the companies as collaborators in a full-scale way. And so our work is to really see how those technologies perform in a commercial setting, at commercial speeds, with that full-scale environment. Of course, these technologies have likely been tested and deployed already in smaller scale situations, like at the University of Manitoba Smart Farm or in a test plot scale environment. And after some additional iteration, now they're ready to be tested and validated in a full scale setting. And so one of the reasons we got started with this project was because we heard from companies that access to those full scale data sets of seeing how their technologies actually perform at scale was a barrier. They didn't have access to those sorts of testing and validation sites. And it was a barrier in terms of their ability to find new customers, find new farmers that were willing to work with those technologies and try them out, because they were asking farmers to sort of take that risk after only having test plot scale tests and data sets. And so by being able to test and validate at Innovation Farm, we're taking away some of that risk because we're testing it in the commercial environment before other farmers are being asked to do that in their own operations. So that's one piece of how we're working on making sure those technologies are ready for the prime time, solve a real problem for farmers, are commercially viable, work in a prairie setting, these sorts of things. But the other piece of those full-scale data sets for those new companies, or I should say companies with a new technology, is that they now have also access to a full-scale data set for them to use with potential investors and other people interested in their companies along their growth journey. Similar issue to asking a farmer to take on the risk of a new technology without a full-scale data set. These companies were also asking potential investors to invest without really the validity or the verification of having been in that full-scale testing environment. So now, when they are successful in a full-scale testing environment, it's much more compelling for investors and they're able to have more success. So that's a little bit about what we do at Innovation Farm to try and make sure that the technologies and the collaborators that we're working with are really leading to addressing tangible problems for farmers, unlocking opportunities for increasingly productive and sustainable production ag operations in the prairies.
I love that. I think it's very important for companies, whatever stage they're at, to continually ask their customer, ask the check writer, what do they think and how did this work? I'm wondering about Rick a little bit. How did he get involved and what's in it for Rick and how's he enjoying having this new technology on the farm?
Oh, well, it's a pretty cool story of collaboration.
Okay.
We've known Rick for a number of years and actually worked with him on his farm, testing and working on one particular project actually dating back to 2019. And so we have had some collaboration and some projects going with Rick for a number of years. But basically through the pandemic, we got talking about how could we do more? What else can we do to drive digital agriculture and the advancement of new technologies for agriculture? And of course, he's been right on board from the beginning, really is a really incredible partner to work with in this area for a whole bunch of reasons, including, I think he would say that part of his engagement with the Innovation Farm project is about giving back to the industry and providing a tangible means of testing so that new technologies really can work for others in Canadian agriculture. I'm sure that's one of the reasons, one of the things that he would say. He's also incredibly innovative himself. And so, at EMILI, we're really privileged with that Innovation Farm project to be able to start a project and launch from such a high level of tech adoption and innovation already present at Rutherford Farm and through them, the Innovation Farm project. The other piece I would say about working with Rick that's a pretty unique element is that he has very fulsome data sets of their production ag practices over the last 7, really through 10 years. And so this is something that we're able to provide to people who are interested in seeing the historical data sets from the farm and data sets going forward. And so this has been a pretty unique element for some software platforms and sort of other software-based technologies that are interested in that data.
Jacqueline, is there a particular kind of technology or company that EMILI is especially talented in assisting to get to market?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say on that capital side, where we're best able to support are those smaller companies, 3 or 4 people with a proof of concept, through the micro grants, through connections to other funders, accelerators, venture capital, network of mentors here in Manitoba, things like that. But at Innovation Farm, the companies that we're able to work with there really sort of span the gamut of new technologies and sort of wherever people are at in terms of their new innovation, beyond some first iteration hurdle. When you're ready to test in full scale, we're able to work with a whole bunch of different kinds of companies, including those that perhaps already have access to great testing locations even around the world. And I would say how we're able to support and why we're interested in even working with more established companies with their new innovations is because we also want to demonstrate new technologies and how they actually work for prairie agriculture. So even commercialized technologies that are innovative and new, we want to bring out to Innovation Farm, perhaps less for testing and validating once they're on the market, but really to demonstrate how tech-savvy agriculture already is and showcase how it works for prairie agriculture. The example I've been saying to folks all summer as they come to visit Innovation Farm is that electric vehicles exist, but not everybody drives one. And why is that? Maybe they need more comfort and confidence about how it's actually going to work for them in our cold Canadian environment. How are the batteries going to perform? How quickly are they going to deplete? How far can they get on country roads? Things like that. And so that's actually what we're trying to do on that tech demonstration piece is just show how it works so that people can see and experience that for themselves before they're taking on those new technologies. So at Innovation Farm, we're really interested to work with a whole bunch of different kinds of companies. This year, we have 22 collaborative projects going out on at the farm, and a number are wrapping up here as we get into harvest. But, we're
different companies out at the farm.
Yeah, not all. I would say 22 different collaborative projects, Dan. Some from small companies, some from larger companies with new innovation, some from researchers. And I would say, the other bit about what we're trying to do at Innovation Farm is also drive towards projects in some key priority areas, including around, sustainability, GHG, emission reduction, things like that. So I would say lots of relevant topics in the ag industry today that we're looking to work on through projects at the farm.
I wanted to get into some specific examples here if we could, but I want to return back to this example that you made of the electric car because I think that's really pertinent. Now, what I see with the electric car is a great concept. It's got a lot of good things going for it. It's got a lot of pros, but it also has its cons. But really to think of it that we're going to replace every automobile on the road soon with electric vehicle, it's probably beyond the use of the vehicle, probably beyond what's practical for resources, probably beyond a fit, because really electric car is a nice second or third vehicle that has a fit. But it's not the Ford Explorer that's going to get your kids to school when you got 3 feet of snow, on a snow day in the prairie provinces, in Landsberg, Saskatchewan, I think, to be fair. And I wonder with technology sometimes too, when I think of things like the DOT, I thought, it's finally happening. As an equipment salesman for 13 years, I felt automation can solve so many issues. I can't wait till we have robots. But then the robot came out. I feel like it was a collective shrug. And as a replacement for your existing equipment, I don't know that it was a fit, but I think it was more about learning about the expectations of it might have a fit in some operations. Eventually, it'll be something that you'll sort of start to transition to on some level. But isn't a big part of what you do figuring where the actual fit is and setting proper expectations so founders and teams can properly scale their companies into that opportunity and not overshoot to the moon and crash and burn?
Yeah, that's well said, Dan. For sure. Part of it is making sure that these solutions, that we're developing solutions for farmers, farmer-centric innovation, making sure that we are engaging with farmers to understand their real experience on farm, understand the sort of tangible problems and next steps that we can take to, really make production ag increasingly productive and sustainable. What you're mentioning there really reminds me of that saying, a problem in search of or a solution in search of a problem, right? That's not what we're trying to do. And so by bringing people to a real farm, real commercial setting, helping them to understand what it tangibly looks like for agriculture, for production ag in the prairies, I think we start to address some of that by having people see where new innovations can really make a big difference to drive agriculture forward. So that's certainly something that we're working on.
I love it. So of the 22 projects that you've got on the go, I'm sure they're all different shapes and sizes and forms. What are some more of the bigger, more interesting pieces that you're working with out there right now that producers might be interested in?
Yeah, one interesting project. Of course, I find them all interesting. They're all my little children out on the farm trying new things. Yeah. I think especially for us this year at Innovation Farm, seeing just how quickly we could get interest and how keen people were to be out at Innovation Farm and work with us was super encouraging. But I think one project in particular just sort of sticks out for me as this perfect coming together of a whole bunch of different priorities for EMILI that we sort of seek to enact in the ecosystem. And it's a project with Gecko Engineering and Green Arrow Technology. Gecko being a company that develops algorithms to determine where it is likely that herbicide-resistant weeds will pop up in the prairies. It's actually a company out of BC. Greg Stewart is the lead there. And then Green Arrow Technologies, a company led by Scott Hebert out of Manitoba, right here actually. And he and his brother also farm and dabble with all sorts of technology. So we're really keen to work with both of them. We came across Gecko because of their technologies to understand where herbicide-resistant weeds are and predict where they will show up next, which is really interesting because herbicide-resistant weeds are, an exponentially greater problem than just a patch of weeds. A patch of weeds or weeds through your field are going to get addressed with herbicide. But a herbicide-resistant patch, that's a different sort of ball of wax or set of problems. And the more it perpetuates, the worse the problem gets and costs people, farmers, a lot of time and money. So that was a really interesting technology. They use imagery collected over the course of the growing season and over the course of many seasons to understand where those patches are. And so we work with them at Innovation Farm, flying across the fields of Innovation Farm with our drone, collecting these images, and they analyze them and put them through their algorithms. We got connected to Green Arrow Technology actually as a capital enablement project of EMILI's, where we were able to give them a small emergence grant and help them continue in their journey. It was then that we realized, there's a connection between these two different companies that EMILI is working with. And as Green Arrow Technologies works with drones as a service, mapping, elevation, and things like that in Manitoba, as well as sells drones, we could connect these two companies and that the algorithms developed by Gecko Engineering could actually be flown and enacted by Green Arrow Technology at Innovation Farm. So those companies are collaborating on a project at Innovation Farm, and we actually were able to bring them out to our Innovation Demo Day in July and have them demonstrate now their technology in action, collaborating to a group of investors and other funders at the farm.
That's really interesting. You think about a company like that with some sort of brainchild. I don't know if you have sights on how that all got started. And then coming to the market and then realizing, well, I might have a company here, I might have a product, but then what is a trajectory, and can you help founders figure out, well, I want to, because there's so many decisions to be made. Really at the beginning, most folks should decide, like, do you want to build something to sell? Is this a good fit? Because it seems like that's really good technology to be adopted within somebody like Trimble, for example. So you help folks with their trajectory, figure out who they are and where they're going?
Definitely. But I would say where we're best able to support those companies is also to connect them to mentors and beyond. So when, as companies continue to grow, how we're best able to support is to connect them beyond to those experts that perhaps have scaled those companies in the past and have that lived experience to share with the companies and founders that we work with.
I know that founders are all very close to their to their babies, much like, you describe your 22 projects out there. What do you think is something that you've seen as a bit of a theme that maybe founders struggle with, being so close to, so emotionally attached to their invention? Is this something that you can help folks with?
Oh, that's a good point, Dan. For sure that I think everyone sees that across the way. Perhaps it's always easier to see from the outside than for the people who have really lived and breathed whatever their innovation is for so long. And I think maybe what we're able to offer them is a little bit of fresh perspective, or a little bit of grounding in reality that, hey, not everybody cares about that as much as you do, or not everyone feels as strongly about your innovation as you do. And so bring it out to the farm, see how it actually works in real life, and then also, while being out there, get the perspective of people who work in production ag day in and day out, and get their feedback about, does this really solve this problem? Does it solve it in a way that is tangible or feasible? Are people going to be able to use it? And sort of get that incremental feedback to keep honing and refining and really make it the best it can be.
Mm-hmm. Who's funding this machine, this beautiful machine, EMILI? How does it run?
Well, through a number of important and highly valued stakeholders and funders.
If you're listening, we love you.
Exactly. Thank you very much.
Little plug.
Please take my calls. So we affectionately refer to Innovation Farms as Innovation Farms powered by Ag Expert, and we're really grateful for the support of Farm Credit Canada and their Ag Expert platform. So that is a key element of the Innovation Farm work. Of course, EMILI also receives funding from PrairieScan through the federal government, and then a number of other industry supporters that we're incredibly grateful for and have supported EMILI over really since our founding in 2016. And I'm particularly grateful to all of our industry funders, because they know and they see that funding that they provide to EMILI that empowers us to do this work to grow the digital ag ecosystem is not going to directly accrue back to the value for their business. It's going to provide value back to their business, but it's going to provide value back to their organization by providing value in the whole of the ecosystem. Some of the work that we do around skills and talent, for example, we're spending time and investing dollars in trying to reach students at the high school level, students at the undergrad level, to make them aware of the opportunities in digital agriculture and how their math, science, arts, writing, creative communications backgrounds can be applied and sort of integrated into digital ag. The value of that is years out in the future. And so that's why I say the contributions from industry are incredibly valued, because I know that they're doing it actually for the good of the industry and supporting the work that EMILI is able to do to advance that.
So are you looking for more industry partners? Is that a thing that you're constantly seeking to grow?
Always, Dan. Always.
Yeah. Always. You're always.
I should say, I wanted to note that, this year at Innovation Farm, over the course of June through September, we brought 350 people out to the farm to see what we're doing through a number of events and our Tour Tuesdays and things like that. And it really was a diverse audience. Educators, students, entrepreneurs, innovators, all sorts of ag companies and their teams, whether they're research or agronomy or what have you. And so that's kind of one of the things that we're trying to do, which sort of loops everything together, is how can we make sure that the work of Innovation Farm helps companies test and validate, helps them demonstrate their commercialized technologies, but also how do we showcase how tech-savvy and technology-enabled agriculture already is to a diverse audience. So we're doing that by bringing people out to the farm throughout the year, but also through all sorts of videos and web content and things like that, so that we're able to reach more people than just the ones that are able to come out to Innovation Farm. We also want to reach all sorts of people with that message who are not going to actually be out at the farm, but take in the content.
Yeah, you said you have an event coming up this fall, and I was asking you, well, who should be going to that? And you said, well, it's really diverse.
That's right. So we have our annual Digital Ag Conference coming up on October the 26th. It's called Agriculture Enlightened. It's here in Winnipeg. And it's just a jam-packed day of really great speakers, all sorts of topics around agri-food technologies or I should say, intelligent technologies and agri-food data. And so when you ask me about the audience, I say purposefully diverse. Purposefully diverse sessions around the roles of new technologies, a number of different smart farm panels, which are all going to be incredible. We're looking forward to a great session from JP Gervais and Fred Wall talking about the economics of innovation, some sessions around the ethical use and responsible use of AI, another session around capital and what's needed to grow companies here in the prairies. And so the sessions are purposely diverse because we want the audience to be diverse. Typically it's around 250 people here in Winnipeg, the ag industry, farmers, educators, industry, researchers, entrepreneurs, students, because we want the audience to run into each other and find those good conversations and areas of collaboration when they're at Ag Enlightened.
I love it. I'm wondering a little bit, we talked about some of the issues that, are some of the problems that you might be solving for founders. What kind of problems are you solving for producers? Just relate a quick story. Actually, yesterday, I think I got a call from somebody from TELUS, God bless him, who listened to the podcast, appreciate it. But she had been just asking, well, what are producers using for precision platforms? I really had to think. I thought of Trimble. I thought of Climate View. Of course, John Deere has some offerings. I think different pieces work good in different areas. And she even mentioned that FCC had something that I wasn't aware of as a precision platform. But it seems to me, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but one of the problems is what technology is out there? How do you implement it? There's no overarching solution that's consolidated that lets producers have the ultimate portal, I would suggest maybe Apple has for human beings on Earth with their phone. It's sort of all one thing. But with farming, it seems like we have to put a lot of different pieces together, and lots of times it's so farmers are overwhelmed with so many new products, let alone technology. What for? Somebody like my brother, how does he engage with your organization? What problems are you solving for him, and what would you say to him if you could tell him, hey, we can help you out?
Oh, that's a great point. Well, I would be careful to tell Terry that I could solve problems for him. I think he's pretty leading edge there. But what I would offer around that whole platform discussion is really the issue of data interoperability, right? I read a really great article a few months ago about how these different platforms were built to be the only platform, right? They intended, or it was their objective to have one and that they would be the winner. That hasn't happened. There are many. We have this issue of data interoperability, and it does make it more complex for farmers to try and manage data and derive insights across all of these different platforms. And so there I would point to the work of a project that Emily has led for the last number of years. Now we call it the Canadian Agri-Food Data Initiative, and it's really about working on solutions and highlighting different solutions to address just that. One of the things we're doing there is talking about interoperability and sort of now that we know there will not be one platform and there are many, and so how can we empower people to figure out and derive insights across these things? Interoperability really is the issue there, that the data in one does not easily speak to or migrate over to another to build a fulsome data set. So there's a number of solutions being developed out there. I think about Leaf as one of those companies working on this, about the data and being able to move data between things and have it be read and understood by alternate platforms, working as a, I don't want to say the word interlocutor, but that's what comes to mind, between different platforms. So that's one piece. The other piece I think that's just foundational that Emily I think is well suited to work on is around data literacy. And so we're asking farmers and others in the industry to make really complex decisions about the use of their data across these different platforms on top of their already incredibly busy schedules and lots of activities on the go all the time. Now we want to layer on, also be the owner and decider and decision maker about how to best use your data and get those data-driven insights. So the data literacy work that Emily is working on is really just a very short series of super tangible and easy to understand modules that put technology agnostic information into the hands of anyone in the industry who wants to learn more about agri-food data, how it's used, what's reasonable, what sort of are typical elements of the ownership and use of agri-food data. And I say that Emily is well suited to do that kind of work because we're a nonprofit. We're not out here to say it's this particular product or it's this particular offering that you should use. We're here to say, here is some information about the sort of state of play with agri-food data and with intelligent technologies. We have worked hard for it to be purposely technology agnostic. And so the information we put out there is to empower people to take in that new information and then make their own informed decisions about what's going to work best for them.
I'm just thinking as you're talking, perhaps there's a big opportunity to learn from the folks that have developed means of collecting data out of necessity, like Rick, because I think a lot of folks come at it like, hey, I'm going to solve a farmer's problem here. How are they going to store data? I'm going to build them something. But really someone who's worked for decades, developed these things from a common sense perspective of, I actually need to do this. This is what I need. If you could take that and reverse engineer it, and for some folks that have abundance mindset, don't mind sharing or, helping that scale out, you could be learning a lot about how to manage data from someone who's actually done it, built it from knowing they need it done a certain way.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. That's a big element of that collaboration with Rick. And you're right. It's a very unique element that he is willing to share those data sets. And there is something for sure, lots of things to be learned there about how he has used that data to drive decision making over the last number of years. And then through the addition of additional pieces of technology, additional data collection, how can that be augmented and built out to drive, increasingly productive and sustainable decisions? I think about all of the sensors that we have deployed at Innovation Farm this year. So 47 across the farm, across those 5,500 acres. We're sure not done yet deploying those sensors. But what was really interesting, sensors are a makeup of weather stations and soil moisture probes and pest cameras and crop cameras and leaf wetness monitors and all sorts of things. What we learned is that, this is a lot more sensor and data collection than your average farm in the prairies. We certainly we deployed a lot more than what we thought was typical or average, especially with the different, we sort of heard that from the different sensor providers we were working with. But then as we worked all year to see what those sensors were telling us and how that was informing or could inform decision making, we still saw some gaps in the data collected. There were still some fields where we had more to learn, or we could have had more specific line of sight to what was going on in that field. And so it's interesting to see that there is lots of agri-food data being collected, even from Innovation Farm as one example, but there could be lots more. That's great. We could have more specific line of sight, more real-time data, more real-time predictions of things like yield and other things like that. And yet we still need, so we're going to need more tools to evaluate that data because it's already a lot. There could be more to drive even better decision-making.
It seems like you're trying to serve a rather broad cross-section. Who else are the stakeholders? I mean, the consumers of food come to mind. Who else are you thinking about in this project?
Well, on Innovation Farm, it is really about farmer-centric solutions, developing things that are going to work for farmers in the prairies. It's also about showcasing those new technologies and even what are the opportunities for new technologies developed to companies working in this space, to innovators working in this space that are, looking for a tangible problem to work on, or even a tangible application of a technology that they have developed. That certainly comes to mind in this sort of intelligent tech space as people develop different sorts of algorithms, is providing good use cases to say, perhaps your deep neural network model could work here. And so providing, that sort of context for people. The other things I would say, the other stakeholders that we're keenly aware of are teachers and students at all sorts of levels, high school, university and college professors and things like that. How can we make the opportunities of digital ag come alive for people so that they see, of course, there's lots of exciting and really interesting on-farm jobs. I think about all of the data collected and sort of the analysis that's required by people on farm. But we also want to use Innovation Farm as an example of sort of the tech savviness of agriculture to highlight other roles in the industry, like data analysts, like computer scientists, like machine learning model engineers, things like that, to show all of the different kinds of jobs that contribute to agriculture, but, that maybe you're doing from an office, or maybe you're not even doing, you're not even out at the farm that much, but you're out at the farm enough to know how it applies and how it's being get that feedback loop to make sure that you're creating real solutions. The other piece there, of course, is sort of, I guess I want to say like people with all sorts of backgrounds that maybe would not suspect that their communication or creative communications background finds a place in agriculture. We need more people like that to tell more stories about the industry. So that's really a part of it, is making sure that we do a good job of showcasing the industry to attract more people into agriculture.
That's a huge deal. I love that you highlighted that. Sarah Shimko was just on the episode previous to yourself with Terry and Holden talking about that. And when she frames it in such a way that you realize all these young folk represent such a talent pool, but not only that, they could be policymakers, they're going to be consumers, and the less they understand about agriculture, the more dangerous it is for us in the business when policy is so prominent a player in what gets decided and what ends up in your pocket at the end of the day. I wanted to touch on something here. Artificial intelligence. It seems like it's wild in its capabilities and certainly redefining for the human race as a whole, but it's also hard to understand exactly how to use it. I think the biggest or the most interesting challenge to it is figuring out how to make use of it, and I find it to be a brilliant thinking partner on a lot of levels. I love chatting with it about everything. I find it a much superior Google. It's funny how suddenly Google's like, oh, that's like sold the 2010s or whatever, Now we're at where are you guys working with any artificial intelligence? Where do you see some of this transformative technology taking place in agriculture?
Yeah, we definitely are. One good example that we do talk about a lot because we have been working in this area for a number of years is a project that we have been a part of since 2019 with researchers, Dr. Chris Henry and Dr. Chris Bednosti, to develop massive labeled data sets of prairie crops and weeds, to develop algorithms to distinguish basically plant by plant or green versus green, perhaps, eventually applied in the areas of spray application. So that uses machine learning and AI to predict what plant is the crop, what plant is the weed, and, actually what plant is it. So we're not even are we trying to say, I want to spray everything that's not my crop. Of course, that's what it is. You want to spray everything that's not your crop. But I also want to know, what is it in the field? Is it a volunteer crop from last year? Is it a weed? Is it a herbicide-resistant weed? That's sort of where that technology is really great, is repetitive tasks and where it can learn from sort of massive amounts of data. So that's an example where we're using AI, on a project right now, multi-year. And I will also say that massive label data set that we've developed, we got started on that work and we're working with these researchers because there wasn't such a data set available of crops and weeds for prairie agriculture. And so we have been developing it out in the field using sort of real life, this is what the crops look like in the real world, as well as in growth chambers to get really perfect controlled images of those plants. And so the combination of those two types of images has led to a really rigorous data set that's really useful for our purposes, developing these algorithms. But also, we're very happy to make that data set publicly available to, we say, Canadian innovators. Could be companies, could be researchers who are interested. And so what we've created with this data set is sort of a foundational tool for people to create other innovations from. Because before this data set existed, there really wasn't a sufficiently large data set of prairie crops. And so by making that available, our intention is that we've spurred additional innovation that's going to work for the prairies because they're able to now innovate and use a prairie data set. The other piece I feel like, Dan, maybe this conversation's headed in is around, AI and humans and jobs and things like that. Is that, do I?
Sure, yeah. Take the question right out of my mouth. I love it. You're doing a great job. You can do host and guest. I love it. Just keep asking yourself questions. I'll let you roll.
This is my last one. This is my big point. It's come up a whole bunch for us in the last number of weeks, I suppose, as ChatGPT and other things are maybe sort of back in the news and things like that. And I've got a good answer for it. And it is, AI is not here to take our jobs. You were mentioning, I think you called it a helpful co-thinker or something like that.
Yes. Yeah, as a thinking partner.
The thinking partner. I love that because I really think that that's what it is. It's enabler or empower to humans to take some of those tasks away that are repetitive, that are able to be learned, and it really frees up time and energy for humans to do what we're uniquely capable of, to do the tasks that require that critical thinking, to problem solve, to understand diverse variables and sort of different situations happening. And so when people ask me, do I think AI is going to take our jobs? Is this bad? I say, first off, no, we have a massive labor shortage issue. I mean, across industries, but certainly that shows up in agriculture. And so if this can take away some of those tasks that are repetitive and that are sort of well suited for AI and different technologies to take on, that's great because it frees up time of the people that are already in the industry to do more productive activities and be more efficient. But also it allows new people to come in who have different kinds of skill sets that can leverage these technologies and contribute even more to the industry as well.
That's such a fascinating topic because we were talking about it earlier. I mean, I think a lot of traditional farming is still getting in the equipment like a big Tonka toy and driving it and operating it. And that's kind of, the skill set of honor is how straight you could drive for how long and making things black, when we were cultivating back in the day. But now those roles have become a lot more sophisticated. And even though there's a lot of automation in the cabs, I find it requires a different level of skill sets and talents and aptitudes to actually get some of the more sophisticated things like the prescriptions in there and optimizing everything and calibrating everything. So I just question because we know technology has always been increasing, but really in today's world, as far as I can tell, and correct me if I'm wrong, we need more people with broader skill sets than ever. And I would have way more opportunity going back to the farm and contributing in a meaningful way than in my dad's age when you had to be a jack of all trades, which I am not. I'm not great with my hands. That's why I sit behind a mic and I sell for a living. But great points. And I don't think anybody should really be afraid of the future unless it really is going to be like the Terminator. Well, that's a whole different set of issues. I don't know if EMILI can help save us from, Skynet or anything in the future. I'd love it if, she was a bulwark against the future of the machines. But we should probably lean towards wrapping this up unless you have any other questions that I didn't think of that you could ask yourself. That would make a great point. I love that you're doing that. But I think I'm kind of curious about, if we met here again in 3 years and we were to talk EMILI, what would have to have happened that Jacqueline Keena would have felt like, oh, this is a big success in 3 years? What does that look like?
Oh, that's a really good question. And I don't know if you picked 3 years on purpose or not, but I've really seen a lot of this long-term forecasting shift talking about 3 years versus 5 or 10. And I actually think that's really just attributed to the rapid changing nature of new technologies that I'm not going to spend actually a lot of time thinking about how to project goals out to 10 years. I'm going to work hard at the 3 year, and then somewhere around year 2, I'm going to predict the next 3 years. So I don't know if that was on purpose or not, but
it'll be down to 6 months by then.
Well, exactly. I think it's really thoughtful. So what does that look like, or what do I think it could look like? Obviously, all sorts of new expansion and new activities happening at Innovation Farm in a couple of areas. We have goals for this coming growing season about doing different kinds of sustainability experiments to better understand carbon capture in soil and greenhouse gas emission and things like that. So some key priority project areas for EMILI that are going to keep growing and expanding to provide that sort of tangible value and information back to the industry. But also my hope, and something that we're working hard towards, is that companies that come out to Innovation Farm and test and validate and get some information to further iterate their products and technologies are going to be on the market and that are going to be solving really tangible problems for farmers in a feasible and useful way. So that's some near-term things at Innovation Farm from that perspective. In some of the other work that EMILI does, it's really around making sure that we can continue to communicate about the industry and how tech-savvy it is. My goal is that students who go into college or university from high schools in the city know about how great the jobs are in digital ag and how fulfilling and meaningful the industry is, and that they're taking all sorts of different kinds of diplomas and degrees, but that they're ending up working in digital agriculture because they understand what a great industry it is and how their diverse skill set and background can really provide huge value to agriculture.
Sounds exhausting.
Well,
Emily is busy, like we said at the beginning of the episode.
Emily's busy, and we can only do it because of our talented team and all the people that support us. So if it was just me, yes, it would feel very daunting, but we're really fortunate that there's a big group of us.
You could carry this ball yourself. You're so passionate. I'm sure you're dragging the team into the future. Let's go team. But what does it mean to you? That was something that I got from the notes there from Nicole. You're passionate about women in ag, in entrepreneurship. Like, what does that mean to you? I can't relate being a male and everything. So fill me in here, okay? I'm like, tell me how it is.
Well, I would say that I have really had the privilege of working in the industry for about a decade now. And my experience has been incredibly positive. I'll admit sometimes I feel like, oh yeah, this is a male-dominated industry. You walk into some rooms, like, okay, yeah, there's a lot of not a lot of long hair in this room. Yeah, that's okay.
A little bit of testosterone.
But my experience has been incredibly positive, and I really can say that very honestly. That a lot of people have made a lot of space for me, a lot of space for lots of women on my team to feel connected, to feel included. And as someone who doesn't come from a farming background, early on in my career, a lot of people made a lot of space to teach me about the industry. I mean, sure, I went to school, but I needed more of that in-field, on-farm, really in the industry, soaking up what it really looks like to work in agriculture. And a lot of people made a lot of space for me to take that in and learn in a really safe environment where you can ask questions. And so I think the ag industry does a great job of making space for people who are willing to sort of push through that door and have that uncomfortableness for the first couple of seconds. But I would encourage the industry, as well as people who are thinking about agriculture, that it's going to take both of us to get more people into the industry. As agriculture, we need to do more to communicate about the different kinds of opportunities, that there is an ability to come in, that there's a willingness to accept new people and continue to make that space for them, has been my really positive experience. And also, people from outside the industry need to keep pushing through that, little bit of uncomfortableness at the beginning and find your place in agriculture, because it's a great industry. It's really meaningful. You were mentioning about Eberhard Ag, contributing to feeding the world. That's an incredibly important part of it, as is agriculture being an incredibly important driver of the Canadian economy. I think sometimes in cities we forget that agriculture is a really important part of Canada's strong economy. And then the other piece is that it's filled with incredible people that care about each other, that care about the work. And it's a really exciting time with the roles of new technologies and all the rest of it. So I think a big push-pull from in the industry and from people who are looking to get involved to bring more people into agriculture.
Well, hey, I'm really glad to hear that's been your experience. And we as men in the industry really need to make sure that women in the business feel respected and feel safe and feel valued. And we need to, you're right, it's like creating that space for that. And people of all races, there's so much room. It's so exciting. I think of my kids too, if they want to be involved with agriculture, there's so many different places they could fit. And, growing up on the farm, it used to be very different. It was sort of one mixed bag of everything. And now you can really get specific about an area of the business that you love, and you can make big contributions like you're doing, Jacqueline. So I'm really proud of you. I think what you're doing is really incredible. It would be exciting to have you on the show in 3 years, and we'll hear what you folks are doing. If potential partners, be it farmers or industry, want to get a hold of you, how do they get a hold of you, Jacqueline?
Yeah, so we're in a couple places, EmilyCanada.com, on social media, @Emily, and EMILI, I'll say. And easy way to get in touch with me is just that info@emilycanada.com email. It's we're a small enough team, it gets to me pretty quickly. And we're always happy to engage with people, farmers, the industry, new companies, all the rest of it. And I'll say a great way to get connected and sort of see everything that we're up to is coming up at Agriculture Enlightened on October 26th. And more information on that is at agenlightened.ca.
Good timing. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show. Keep up the good work. It sounds really exciting, and I can't wait to see what you guys do in the industry.
Thanks very much, Dan.
Thanks, Jacqueline.